Hello, welcome back. Welcome to another video. It is Tuesday, the week before Snetterton race week, and I should be driving laps around Snetterton at a javelin track day at the moment, but unfortunately after my first session this morning my clutch failed on the Caterham. So that was a problem for a couple of reasons. One, well, it brought my day to an end, which is never nice. Well, three reasons. Reason two is, well, we're racing a week on Saturday, so it's not much time to get it fixed. But the third problem was I've also got a track day booked at Silverstone the day after tomorrow, which it's only a track day and obviously I can miss it if needed, but you know, it was a shame to have screwed that. So anyway, big thanks to James, who introduced me to the chaps at Alpha 7 Motorsport, who are a Caterham race team, Caterham specialist, who are like 10 miles away from Snetterton. So they came down to the garage, they confirmed it was a clutch, likely the pressure plate's fallen apart, and they offered to get the car fixed for me tomorrow. So that's the Wednesday. So I'll be able, if it is what they think it is, they've got all the parts in, or they will have all the parts in by tomorrow morning, and that will see me on track on Thursday at Silverstone. So massive thanks to these guys that they've not fixed it yet, but you know, the effort they've put in to get the car here and kind of drop everything and help me out with it tomorrow is just, you know, can't be appreciated enough. So I'll check in with some progress. So it's now the following day. The Alpha 7 guys are over there where that truck is, and I'm in the back of my trailer because on the way to Alpha 7 yesterday, a weld broke on my tyre rack, and if you imagine a Caterham nose cone under there, those wheels were pretty close to making a mess of my Caterham. So it's the second time this has happened. It went back to Eco Trailer for them to fix it, and obviously it's just not sufficient for this. So I'm going to get the wheels off. I've already started, as you can see, figure out how many of these wheels I can store safely in the Volvo, and then the rest will just have to get bunged around the car once the car's back in again to get me to Silverstone and then get me home again. But yeah, this tyre rack needs replacing. Hello, welcome to Silverstone, which is a peculiar place to find yourself when we're trying to prepare for a Snetterton race weekend. But yeah, I had this booked way in advance. I had it booked with my coach Darren to try and get some seat time around Silverstone, because that will be the season finale race after Snet, albeit not on this layout. This layout that the track day was on, like most, was on the GP layout. So this kind of next sequence of corners here, after this turn here, this is kind of no longer relevant. You know, I would be going straight on-ish here on the race weekend. So this left-hand turn onto the back side of the circuit here is just not relevant for learning. But we'll come back onto that. So Alpha 7 had obviously fixed my clutch yesterday and did a great job of turning that around. You know, the whole engine has to come out, which I know these Caterham teams are well used to doing that, so it's maybe not that impressive to those. But for me, getting an engine in and out in a day and all of that work that goes with it without introducing any niggles into the car, I think is quite an impressive feat. The Caterham were aware of what had happened with my clutch as well, and it is really fair to point out that had I had more time to respond and get it off to a Caterham dealer, or if it had happened during a race weekend, Caterham have made it clear that clutch replacement would have been free of charge. So we'll work something out about that later, but even though it is a consumable part, Caterham are not happy with how long it lasted and the way in which it failed, and for a race car warranty, I really don't think you can ask fairer than that. So the friction plate material had just completely fallen off the friction plate. It hadn't worn down, it just disintegrated. I'll put a picture up now of what was left of that. So Caterham have got that clutch back now for analysis. Onto the actual Silverstone track day then. This was an immense day for many reasons. You know, I kind of got here with no sleep, and
wasn't really feeling it after the issues I had at Snet. But the day turned around massively. First off, the other people I was sharing the track with, I've never been on a track day like it. There was the rarest of exotic cars there, hypercars, single seaters, Ferrari Challenge race cars, Leon Cupras, whatever you could sort of imagine. There was even a couple of historic DB5s. Really enjoyed sharing the track with the clientele on this day, and it also was a really smoothly run track day. I think there was one red flag which I missed because I was having downtime anyway, but there were very few yellows, very few disruptions to the track day. We really did get a lot of value out of the track time, and I also got a lot of value out of Darren, my coach, as well. As I said, we were focusing on kind of techniques that I could carry into Snet. And I definitely felt, Silverstone's a great place to practice the kind of partial brake, high speed, high entry corners that Snetterton has a couple of. So we were able to use that to kind of get my head into the frame for that. The car, considering, as I said earlier, it had the engine and gearbox out, there was a tiny sniggles which I don't even think were related. The V-box power started cutting out again, which they wouldn't have touched, so I just had to mess around with the power for that. And I did get the slightest misfire on one or two of the sessions, which seemed to go away after I messed with a load of connectors. So fingers crossed that doesn't return. So this lap I'm on now, I think this does maybe work out to be my fastest lap of the day. I do throw away some time at the end, spoiler alert. But yeah, I really enjoyed driving Silverstone. Actually, I thought it would be really dull to drive it in an academy car. I've done it in my Lotus a couple of times, and even the Lotus, which has got over double the power of the Caterham, it gets a bit tedious on the straights. But the car kept you on your toes enough through this high speed stuff like Maggots and Beckett's and through Stowe and Abbey and Copse. The car was really quite an adventure to take through those. So it was a really good fun track to drive in the academy car, and with me being sharing the track with cars with such a significant speed difference, traffic for me really wasn't the problem. I mean, I was the traffic, let's face it, but even where I was faster than people in the corners, they were able to create enough space on the straights that I didn't have to worry about the other cars hardly all day. So yeah, really good track day. Good first test for the clutch. And the next time I would be on track would be on Friday. Unusually, kind of rarely for this season, we would only be getting one test day at the circuit. So here we go. This is the time I threw away. So we would be at Snetterton for testing only on the Friday, which meant I had one test day to learn the track and get caught up. To the Snetterton paddock. So this is the Friday. We were sharing the paddock with the 24 hours of 2CV and the first ever Caterham Grand Prix, which would be a 2-hour Caterham race just after our race, which we were unfortunately not allowed to enter this year, but they'll let us join the big boys, hopefully, if they redo it next year. So yeah, even though that we only had today, it was open pit lane, which did work in my favour. I mean, I could hammer the laps in and try to get caught up. And I did feel pretty good about this circuit right from the start, to be honest. I feel like it's a circuit which is very representative on the sim, which meant I kind of knew where I stood on the track and in the corners. And I was able to use some of the technique work I'd been doing with Darren at Silverstone. So pretty successful test day. It was really funny sharing the track with the 2CVs. They're so funny, it's hard to explain. We don't drive the fastest cars in the world, not by a long shot, but the closing speed on the 2CVs was hilarious, and it made for some rather entertaining moments on track. So I'll just put a quick moment from testing on, just so you can see those 2CVs in action, and then we'll get into qualifying. So this is my quickest lap from the testing day. which was kind of curiously void of much of a tour. In fact, I don't think I get any tour, which filled me with confidence. To be honest, it was a pretty good time. I'd been improving throughout the day, finding time in every session and making little kind of technique improvements as well. I know there is a bit of a tour just around here. So I finished the test day feeling pretty good actually. Starting to wonder if there is you can overdo it in testing. Where we have had 2 full test days and a track day early that week, and do you get to the point where you start overdriving and overthinking? Maybe there's an argument that little is more. But yeah, I was feeling good. After the test session, we just kind of bled the brakes on the car and kind of give it clean and headed off into the evening. So the next clips I'll put up will be from the qualifying session. We had a very early schedule of qualifying at 9 a.m. The briefing was at 7:45, and then our race was going to be at 11 a.m. So the earliest schedule we would have to date. I'm not that much of a morning person, so I wasn't massively looking forward to that. But yeah, we'll get into that when I put the qualifying clips. Okay, welcome to qualifying, bright and early on Saturday morning. We were first out on track, and we had some pretty good conditions. The wind had changed a little bit from testing, which meant I was now tempted to grab 5th into turn 1 here. Still not sure whether that was the right thing to do, but it kind of felt appropriate at the time. I was in assembly with a bunch of really fast cars around me, so I thought I'd have a really easy run at getting a good tour. Unfortunately, that wasn't quite the case. The guys in front managed to get around a bunch of traffic way quicker than I could, and I ended up losing touch with those. So I was sort of in no man's land for the middle of the session. My times getting through the traffic were in the sort of 129s, high 128s, and then once I got a clear run, a couple of laps before this one I'm showing you now, I had a good a mid 127, which I knew was a decent banker. We've been doing kind of low 127s in testing, but I knew I could do better with the tour. I was then at a decision point. I could see some cars in the distance, which I'm now slowly creeping up to now on this bit of footage, and I also knew I had some fast cars behind me, so it was kind of, do I try and tag onto these guys and try and get a tour, or do I roll the dice, come right out of it and wait for some faster cars to travel? I decided that Joe up ahead was getting into just the right striking distance, and Joe did some really, really nice laps in front of me, which were really helpful. Which gets me onto this hot lap now, which I believe ended up being my fastest time in qualifying. I will come back at the end of this lap as a bit of a debrief. There we go, 1:27.2. That was my best lap of the weekend up to that point, which is the first time I've done that all year. I've been quite frustrated in getting to qualifying and kind of under-delivering. I know there's always been excuses, weather, wind, tyres, whatever. But yeah, this was the first time I managed to get that PB in qualifying, which I was really happy about. And I'll be honest, coming in for it was the cool down lap pretty much straight after that. I think I had one last lap, but I was kind of backing off the traffic at that point. And I did come into the pits quite looking forward to finding out what my finishing position would be. I was I did think for a moment there that might have been pole position lap, but it wasn't. It was P3. It was a couple of tenths behind Max, who got pole, and Rich Davies was just in between us. So really good job to those guys. I think in hindsight, watching the lap back, the fourth or fifth gear into turn one made no difference in my data compared to my best lap in testing. They were exactly the same, to a thousandth of a second. Where I lost my time, you can see it on the Delta if you watch the video back, was that little bit of oversteer in the final corner. I think without that, pole was on. Which is cool. It's a great position to be in. P3 for the race. So I will catch up with you in the next video where we get to race around Snetterton 200. Enjoy.